This video is going to be a film study look at the Lions' two-point conversion play against the Cowboys in Week 17 officially. Detroit goes down there, loses 20-19. A very exciting game to watch the comeback in the fourth quarter. Jared Goff able to complete so many passes to Laporta, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown for the touchdown was a lot of fun to watch. It was exciting. And then the two-point conversion situation. Very disappointing for the NFL, clearly drawing a lot of a negative attention from Lions fans and others. What I'm going to do in this video is try to show you why I think the Lions do and do not deserve some of the blame for Brad Allen's mistake. Well, excuse me, for their loss. I don't think the Lions deserve any blame at all for Brad Allen's mistake specifically. What they do deserve some blame for and responsibility is the final play. Jared Goff's throws low to Mitchell in the left flats would have given him a good opportunity to score, if you ask me, if it hits him in stride in time. This is a brilliantly designed play. Well, both of them. The successful two-point conversion play to Taylor Decker and the failed two-point conversion, the incomplete pass to Mitchell in the left flats. Both of them are brilliantly designed. Before we get to that, let's take a look at the touchdown pass to Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's a, you ask me, other people call it different things, but you've got the point man, Raymond, running over the top, and then St. Brown's going to bring his route, to the flat. So it's 2-on-2 over here between the top of the numbers and the boundary. Ben Johnson attacking to the boundary. You can see how quickly Jared Goff gets rid of this ball. Both Gilmore of Khalif Raymond. Goff is reading there immediately. 2-on-3 design and execution on this play, if you ask me. So now let's get to the two-point conversion play. It's 20-19 here. We know Detroit goes up 21-20 after this successful pass to Taylor Decker. What makes this so frustrating from a Lions perspective is not only is it brilliant design and execution on the play, we'll talk about the reporting process in a moment, but this is an example of Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson playing the long game as it relates to Skipper being on the field so much in their jumbo 12 personnel sets, which is what this is. Take notice, and I will continue to refer to this, take notice of the alignments as well. Skipper is actually the right tackle. Sewell is lined up in the slot. St. Brown stays right where he is. Now, why is Sewell standing up? You can't have your third point of contact in the ground, a three-point stance, and be closed off and then move. So that's why Sewell is standing up. Notice Skipper is got his hand down in the ground. Everybody else in the offensive line has their hand in the ground. Sewell can only do this because he has 2 points of contact right now, not 3. If he has a third point of contact on the ground and he's closed off, which he is, Amon-Ra St. Brown is determined to be on the line of scrimmage in the NFL. Notice that Laporta is off. He's not closing off Sewell. St. Brown is. And that's just one added element to as he runs on, and then Allen sees him, looks at him for confirmation of something. My suspicion is Dan Skipper said nothing because that's what he was coached to do. And then at that moment is when Decker says something to him. And I would guess Decker's probably 5, 6, 7 feet away, maybe closer than that. And you can see as Brad Allen walks away that he looks at Decker and almost gives like a little bit of a confirming nod or head bob. I'm not sure exactly on that, but maybe I'm imagining it. And then goes and tells the defense that 70 reported. Do I think he intentionally told them the wrong guy? Decker did. Now, Decker and Sewell going over to the ref is an added element to it that provides proof, if you ask me, of the level of deception the Lions were operating with. This guy right here knows something is up, and you'll see it from the end zone angle here in a moment. He knows 70 has reported. So he's turning right now to his teammates, and he's pointing at 70, like, wait a minute. He's closed off. He's in the three-point stance. He's closed off. He knows that guy's supposed to be eligible. No one else is paying attention to it. And sure, if they knew that 68 had reported eligible, then maybe they would have guarded things differently. That's absolutely true. Other guys are running route to possibly be used if Decker is not open, but certainly it looks like they would have been covered up as well. One thing to note here, anyone decrying the attempt at deception here is just being hypocritical. Most of those people are either non-competitive, first of all, and they don't understand it, or they're Cowboys fans, which I can't blame Cowboys fans for saying, hey, look, if this guy reported as eligible, we would have guarded him. I got no problem with that. However, there is one added layer to this that is almost like a security blanket for what I just described. Now, it doesn't end up being a huge shot, but Josh Reynolds is the receiver to the left. He does not care about the jam, and he really does not care about trying to get open on this underneath drag. All he's trying to do is get a piece of this defender right here, who is the guy and the only guy who could potentially stop Taylor Decker from catching the football. If Decker reported as eligible, is it possible that that guy number 6 would have guarded Decker well? Sure, it is. This is an added layer to the design to ensure a high play action pass where the quarterback has his back turned. Zone read out of the shotgun. I mean, it's late motion by the offense, which I just watched the Ravens and Dolphins game on Sunday afternoon. The Dolphins do late motion all the time to try to mess up your coverages. The defense having a simulated pressure, mug blitz with 6 or 7 guys up on the line of scrimmage, 4 of the defenders blitzing, 2 or 3 dropping out in coverage. All of football is deception. This, if you ask me, falls a little bit on the shoulder of the Cowboys from the standpoint of being so predictable by playing man in most of these situations. So I think the design was perfect. It was an example of the long game being played by the Lions and setting defenses up, conditioning them that Dan Skipper is going to report as eligible. Unfortunately, Brad Allen, in the moment, wasn't up to the task. And that should be the standard. If the standard for a trick play is to succeed is this high for the offense, which I think is an amazing example of how prepared NFL coaches and players are. If the standard is this high to execute it successfully, why is the standard for the refs so low? Another human being, Sewell, happens to be standing there. I did mention this in the reaction video. It's possible that Sewell was over there to be another added layer of security to make sure that Decker reported. Now, I do understand that he was also over there to further obfuscation for the Cowboys, further eye candy for them, no doubt about that. But whenever you're doing something like this, in my experience, you want as many added layers to it as possible to ensure that you get it accomplished. This is almost espionage level, if you ask me, that Dan Skipper was a part of 12 personnel all year long and reporting as eligible. And I'm showing you a succession of plays for a reason to build up to one against those Packers later in the season. It's a very similar formation. It's actually almost identical to something that the Lions used often when Skipper was on the field. The only thing is they've reversed Skipper, Laporta, and Sewell. Last one in all of these iterations, this is what I would call Jumbo 12. You can see up here you've got Sewell as the right tackle, Skipper as the tight end now, and then Laporta as the second tight end, hence Jumbo 12. Ends up being a little swing pass out into the left flats last week against the Vikings, complete to Jahmyr Gibbs. So let's get to the one that I've described. This is against the Packers. Same exact formation, except the difference is Sewell is still at the right tackle, Laporta is the inside tight end, and Skipper is the outside tight end. You can see you've got St. Brown up at the top, Reynolds down at the bottom, Decker at his left tackle position, but he's closed off, meaning he's ineligible. When we get back to the all-22 of the successful, failed two-point conversion against the Cowboys, you'll see that Josh Reynolds is off the line of scrimmage, thereby making Taylor Decker eligible. I will tell you that as a youth and high school football coach, we dealt with this every week. It was almost on every play because you don't report. So someone could be eligible suddenly who's not been eligible most of the game. They don't have reporting rules. They don't have to go to the defense and tell them who is eligible. All the offense has to do is have 7 men on the line of scrimmage. Now, you do have to have 5 ineligible numbers, but sometimes those ineligible numbers can be eligible. In any case, the Lions have used this exact formation. This is just the first one I could find today once I got the all-22. We'll let it get back to the front here so you can see the formation. Now, it's going to be from a different angle. But remember, Sewell, Laporta, Skipper all in line together, or all next to each other, I should say. St. Brown on the line of scrimmage to the right. Reynolds off the line of scrimmage to the left, Decker at his typical position, left tackle. So it doesn't look like that initially, which is, again, part of the attempt to obscure to the Cowboys what's going to happen. Skipper's lined up at right tackle, Sewell in a two-point stance like I described earlier. Once you get motion down, the only difference here is personnel-wise, Gibbs is not in, Montgomery is, but you've got a reversing of these guys. So Laporta is off. He's not closing off Sewell. Gibbs is. And then additionally over here, Decker is not closed off because Reynolds' foot is ever so slightly further back than St. Brown's foot. I do agree that St. Brown and multiple NFL receivers who are determined to be on the line of scrimmage are almost lined up a little too far back, for my opinion, but that's not how the NFL administers it. I don't think it impacts this play at all. What does impact this play is that Decker catches the football and the ref apparently incorrectly detailed to the defense who reported. I still suspect that Josh Reynolds potentially getting a piece of number 6 is going to impact this play. No one else is available here at all. St. Brown being guarded by Gilmore, who's just still so amazing. And then Reynolds on the drag underneath has gotten just enough of this guy, number 6, such that he can't get back out there. Do I think it still would have worked? Yes, I do. In terms of giving Decker an opportunity to catch the football. Is it going to be more contested? Is there going to be less time and less space? Of course it is. I will say this about the levels of deception. I find this to be far more impressive and far more interesting to talk about than what the Patriots did in the 2014 playoffs. If you recall, they had 4 offensive linemen on the field for 5 or 6 plays. It wasn't just the one play that everybody talks about. They did it multiple times on the drive. So they had an extra eligible number on the field, but he would be closed off. So he had to report as ineligible. So basically it's similar to what was a growing offensive system in 2005 to 2012, somewhere in that area, called the A11, where all 11 players on the field for the offense, this was high school football, were eligible numbers. And you did not know who was eligible or ineligible on every snap. That's since been banned. And then after the Patriots really took advantage of the rules, was it legal? Yes. It was not something that had ever been done, and it was not something that the refs were prepared for. The rulebook had never had to address it before because no one ever went to those lengths for that length or that depth for deception. So having said that, Bill Belichick and those guys got credit back then for doing so. I remember it vividly because I was a Ravens fan, and we were largely kicking their ass up to that point. We had a 14-point lead twice on the road, once in the second half. Why doesn't Ben Johnson and Dan Campbell get the same thing? I'm separating the decision to go for it of this play. So that's my comment on the usage, the setting it up throughout the course of the season, and I think it gives you an illustration as to why Campbell and Skipper were so pissed off. It's one-time use. It's one-time usage. Has Decker ever reported eligible? Well, yes. Him and Sewell have in previous seasons. Decker's been around a long time. But the combination of what the Lions have done over the course of the season by using Skipper as that second tight end, having him report so often, conditions NFL defenses to what's going to happen when he comes on the field. And if you look at proximity, when a human being is talking to another human being, you generally hear and pay attention to and focus on the people that are closer to you. I don't know what to compare this to, the moment when Brad Allen is approached by Sewell and Decker. I would think of a party, like a college party where there's a lot of noise. Now, there's other reasons to get close to people too in that situation to talk to them, but that's the idea for another video, I guess. There's no way that he heard Skipper from that far away. It's not possible. We have the film of it. The only way he could hear it is if Dan Skipper was screaming and hollering. And I don't see his shoulders move. I don't see any upper body movements by Skipper that illustrate that he's talking loudly, number one. Number two, no one other than Decker gave the eligible receiver signal, and Decker did it in a very sly fashion as he was walking over. Why? Because that's what he was coached to not do. He didn't want to give away to the sideline that the Cowboys sideline and their coaches up top that he was eligible. I think the Lions were trying to use the crowd noise to their advantage, meaning the Cowboys coaches on the sideline may not hear 68 is reported eligible. I didn't hear it on the broadcast. I know you didn't. Since this time, I've seen and heard the Spanish language broadcast. You can hear it on that broadcast, but you certainly couldn't on the initial broadcast. And how I know is Aikman and those guys didn't mention it to us. They did say 70 came in, but they didn't say 70 reported eligible. So it took all year long to set it up. And that's why they were so pissed off when Brad Allen appeared to be a guy who couldn't handle it. They exploited the Cowboys' man defense in the red zone and converted it. Brad Allen just messed it up. So that's the point of why they're so upset, if you ask me. So now let's get to, after the two penalties that got the ball back to the 4-yard line, or closer to where the 2-point conversion is. This is brilliant design, and this is a ball that Goff underthrows to Mitchell. So this is where and when I'm claiming that the Lions do deserve some of the blame. I have already discussed, don't get triggered if you're a Lions fan. I guess you can if you want, but there shouldn't be that much of an imbalance between the expectation level for the players to execute trick plays, which is what it was, and the referees to understand what's going on. They've got the look they wanted from the 4-yard line. It appears as if the Cowboys are trying to zone some of this stuff off, except for perhaps down here to the bottom side. This ball thrown in step with Mitchell. He's going to catch the ball and have an opportunity clearly to get in the end zone. There is a defender who has broken off from Laporta at this point in time. My suspicion is right before the goal line there's going to be some type of contact, or right at the goal line, and it's going to be Mitchell's job to catch it. He's not going to turn upfield. He's going to catch it and just try to power his way into the end zone. Unfortunately, Goff underthrew that ball there. Another, if you ask me, great job of play calling. Not necessarily the decision, because I was hoping to go for overtime. I was saying, hey, just kick it. Even in our Lions Discord, that was my first comment, or my first typed comment was, just kick it. I also think that using St. Brown as a guy motioning in is great design, because now you are giving the Cowboys bait again to look at, because he's your go-to player. Also, Laporta being asked to be the screen or pick guy is brilliant stuff. This could have very easily been a conversion for the Lions. Unfortunately, Goff underthrows it in months of preparation for that moment. And speaking to the pregame meeting between refs and coaches, I'm going to relate it to the long game that I'm claiming that Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson were playing. Yes, they explained that specific play to them. They don't need to explain the plays where Skipper reports eligible, because he always does it. I have no doubt that in some instances people draw up the plays on a whiteboard. Rex Ryan was claiming that, I believe, Sunday morning in one of the television shows. And I thought he did a nice job of explaining. He called it a grease board. We would call it a whiteboard. I know some coaches who have their trick plays drawn up on paper already. So in this case, it would show the refs, Skipper's going to be lined up here, Decker's going to be lined up over here, and this guy, pointing at Reynolds, is off. We're only going to do this, and here's, now what some people would say is, well, they got 6 trick plays. You can't explain all to them. That's true. But what they would say is, when all 3 linemen approach you before the snap, meaning Sewell, Decker, and Skipper, that's the trick play we're talking about. In some cases, I have heard coaches try to tell a ref a trigger word, but that's unfair to the referees. Expecting them to remember a trigger word for each team would be unfair, number one. Number two, I almost wouldn't want to do that, because I've been around some refs I do not trust. As an aside, I will tell you, one season we found a team was using illegal motion. They had used it 23 times leading up to our game. Our game was in week 8. When I say illegal motion, meaning the receiver was on the line of scrimmage. There was no unbalanced configuration. The receiver was on the line. I probably spent 3 hours the weekend before creating a cut-up, sent it to the head of officials, showing him these things, and in the email said, I have only sent these to you. I'm not sending them to other people, certainly not putting them on social media. I'm not trying to put you guys on blast like that. I'm trying to get the game properly officiated so that my kids aren't at a competitive disadvantage. So, received an email back on Tuesday indicating thank you for letting us know this should, according to the email that was that I received, 22 out of 23 situations I was correct. It should have been a penalty in the offense. So we get to the game on Friday night, and you will not believe what I watched. I watched the referees, not the one I emailed, who's the head of officials, go over to the other team and show them how to do the motion properly and legally. I was aghast because it was 3 hours of my time covering up for other people's mistakes, in this case the refs, and the opposing team who didn't know how to teach it. And then they went over and helped them fix it before the game. So why do I tell you that story? Brad Allen made a mistake. There is no making up for this mistake, period. There won't be apologies. There won't be any indication to Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, about the level to which they went to have their players prepared and execute it versus or compared to the low level of execution and preparation that Brad Allen exhibited in that moment. There is no way that Skipper reported eligible from 15, 18 feet away in that stadium with that amount of crowd noise where no one could hear it announced, apparently. The broadcasters couldn't. Spanish language one did. There's no way that Skipper reported eligible and Allen heard it from that far away, but he didn't hear Decker and Sewell. I just don't believe it, and that's what I said during the reaction video. Would it have changed things if they reported Decker as eligible? It could have changed some of the dynamic, no doubt. What we do know is the Lions guys did everything they were supposed to do, in my opinion. So this is my video about it. I know I've covered it in exhaustive detail, perhaps too much so. I thought it was brilliant design. I've said that multiple times. I respect Campbell for going for it on fourth down the way he did. For going for it again the way he did on the incomplete pass to Mitchell. I would not have done that. I will say this. I think Dan Campbell is a guy who doesn't see the negative outcomes. I think he might be a guy who says, what if? What if we get it and we complete the pass to Mitchell and we're up and we win anyway, despite someone else's mistakes? There's a level that Dan Campbell is aiming for that I think other people can't identify or connect with. Not Lions fans. He gets a lot of criticism from outside the Lion fan base. I think there's a level that Dan Campbell is aiming at in each game, in each situation. And to me, the design and the preparation for the two-point conversion pass to Decker illustrates how high their standards are. And unfortunately, Brad Allen didn't live up to that task. Appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Lions fans would enjoy this breakdown of that situation, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it on social media to help this content get more reach.